Okay, in all of the lecture videos and in class, everything that we've talked about so far with respect to ions have been for monoatomic ions. So that means ions that are made from only one atom. However, some ions are made from multiple atoms, and we call those polyatomic because poly means many atoms. And in these cases, it is the group of atoms that are charged. If you add up all of the valence electrons from the atoms that are present, you'll find yourself either short or have extra than expected than if the atoms were just neutral. And that's why that group of atoms as a whole is an ion. So let's look at an example. So one common polyatomic cation is ammonium. So nitrogen, from the periodic table, we know has 5 valence electrons, and hydrogen has 1 valence electron, and there are 4 hydrogens total in the ammonium cation. So that means that there are 4 valence electrons from the hydrogen. So if we add that up, we get a total of 9 valence electrons from nitrogen and hydrogen. But when you look at ammonium, if you were able to hold an ammonium cation in your hand and count up the number of valence electrons, you would find that since it has a +1 charge, that it has lost 1 electron, and there are only 8 valence electrons present. So while you would expect a total of 9, if you held that ammonium ion in your hand and you added up the total number of electrons, you would only find 8. And that's why the group of atoms as a whole is charged. So if I wanted to represent that as a particle, I might write it like that. So it is the entire thing that is charged. All 5 of those atoms together have a positive charge of +1. Look at an example for a polyatomic anion. So a common one is sulfate. So again, if you could hold up hold a single sulfate anion in your hand, you would count up a total of 32 valence electrons. That's what you would find experimentally if you could do that experiment. However, if you were to just look at the atoms present, you would say, well, sulfur has 6 valence electrons, and oxygen has 6 valence electrons, but there are 4 oxygen atoms present in this particular ion, so times 4, that's a total of 24. So if you add up 24 plus 6, you would only expect 1 sulfur and 4 oxygen atoms together to have a total of 30 valence electrons. So when you add up, or when you hold that sulfate ion in your hand and you count up 32, you now know that this group of ions as a whole, this group of atoms as a whole, has a total charge of -2, because within that grouping of atoms, it's gained 2 electrons total. So these are polyatomic ions. They're made from multiple atoms, and that group of atoms has a net charge of either positive something or negative something, depending upon if it's a cation or an anion. And if you look at the handouts on the Canvas page, you'll see lists of some common polyatomic cations and anions.